And before I start, let me say congratulations on 20 excellent years to the CRFM and for this fantastic scientific conference. In fact, I would argue that this really shows why we have an issue in the Caribbean, because, okay, we're going to do the publication, we're going to have that. But then in the interim, all the rest of the science in fisheries, I would love to be able to keep up with it. And I was not aware that all this wonderful science was going on. And as an ocean science, one of the premier ocean science organizations in the region, I think we need to solve this problem. We need to demystify some of the ocean science, all of the ocean science, so that ordinary men and women who have a stake in the oceans can say, I understand what that means. That we're not turning them into scientists, but we need to turn the science into decent, everyday information so that people can understand. And that's really my thought on this. So much excellent work is being done. And the question is, can we harness it all so that we have access to it when we need it, so that our youth can know where it is and we can help to direct their training and capacity development, their research as early career ocean professionals, as future fishers. There's just so many things that we need to address. And I really think that we need to work on this a little harder. So the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, I believe, is one of the ways. I believe it's the way, if we get it right, for us to move forward on some of these issues. So the objective of the Ocean Decade is to produce transformative solutions in science for the ocean that we want. And of course, we know that we have a picture of the ocean we need for the future we want as well. So there are 10 challenges addressed by the UN Ocean Decade. And almost all of them have been mentioned during this meeting. So I won't even go through them individually. Pollution, food security, ecosystems and biodiversity, restoration and protection, a sustainable ocean economy, climate change, ocean hazards, data, and changing the relationship of ordinary people to the ocean. And I think part of that changing of the relationship of humanity with the ocean is helping them to understand the ocean. I grew up in an era where people were afraid to go into the water because they said the ocean had no back door, for example. An uninformed way of looking at the ocean, he says anything that is not on the surface, I really don't know what it is. We need to change that through science. So let me take you over to 2030, which is the end of the UN decade, and hopefully the beginning of our permanent regional coordination in ocean science. And this is what we have helped to achieve through science. These 7 outcomes: a clean ocean, an accessible ocean, a healthy and resilient ocean, a safe ocean, an inspiring and engaging ocean, a predicted ocean, and a productive ocean. I put the productive ocean last because, of course, I believe that that's, pardon me, really the one that is very much linked to fisheries and production and food security, etc. Although I would argue that all of them are cross-cutting and very relevant to fisheries management and governance in general. So then improved coordination is really what I'm trying to, is my hypothesis. If I am able to improve coordination at the national, regional, and global levels, if I say I, but of you know what I mean by that. If we as a team, whatever team that looks like, and I will introduce that to you, are able to come together for improved coordination in science so that we have an ongoing, clear path to delivering science information to our populations in the region, then I believe that we will be on the way to delivering those 7 outcomes that I just showed you. And these are some questions that perhaps we can ask ourselves for further discussion. Is it just the fisheries people who are in this wonderful conference? Or do we have the conservation people, the marine protected area people, the climate change people, the diplomatic community that is negotiating for funding right now for fisheries in New York, in your countries? And if there's any country that has a team like that in the meeting, I would be very happy to chat with you after. But at the regional level, as Milton said in his one of his presentations today, I think we've made a lot of progress. But we need to help the national level. We need to help the national level. The regional landscape is fantastic. But for science, how can we coordinate data and information so that we can benefit fisheries and other productive programs? So we saw some of those solutions in some of the presentations today. And I've been carefully taking note, but we have a lot of clearinghouses. We have a lot of hubs. How do we make sure that all are fully linked so that you can jump from one to the other seamlessly and find what you need? The global landscape, the UNFCCC, the Convention on Biological Diversity, many times this is where real money is negotiated. You as fisheries managers and practitioners are well integrated with FAO. But if in UNEP decisions are taken with respect to the ecosystems on which your fisheries depend, and you don't have a stake in that discussion, then where are you? Are we going in the right direction? So the question is, at the regional level in the Caribbean, and I'm talking about the wider Caribbean here, Latin America and the Caribbean, can we build a permanent coordination structure for ocean science where everybody understands, we can translate that science and everybody has a stake in it? That's what I'm trying to achieve. And I look forward to all of you coming on board to help me answer that question, because we are about to build a house for science coordination. I call it a house because I believe that the science is the foundation of that house. Data management, managing all the data that is collected and the information, let's say, is the covering of the foundation, which is the floor. Because all of that science needs to be collated, it needs to be analyzed, it needs to be put in a way that people can understand it and it's clear and they have access to it. Targeted capacity development for ocean science, I would argue, is the fence. It has to surround everything we're doing, and it has to be at all levels. Informed stakeholder groups would be the walls. They're taking the science and they're saying, yes, I understand this, and I need to go back to my community and I need to do X, Y, Z. I need to go back to my government and do X, Y, Z. Regional and global agencies, I believe, is the plaster for those walls. We are the facilitators. We are the coordinators. We can help, but really it is at the national level that is delivered. And strong, sustained, relevant, and useful communications. I cannot stress enough communications. And this scientific conference proves that to me even more. Without this conference, I would not know what you're doing or where I can go to find information on aquaculture, on aquaponics, on all of these things that we have heard about in the last few days. Communications is key, and we have to solve that also. And then I would say that the steel in this house is informed political support and will to take the science and do something with it. That's what's keeping the house standing. So our goal for Caribbean SIDS is to build this permanent house in the next 7 years. We've already lost 3. There's a lot of funding available for the UN Decade of Ocean Science, and more is coming all the time. Latin America, as usual, has advanced and gone forward, and none of the Caribbean SIDS have engaged with us on the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. We need to change that. We need to change that. We need to have balance. So I'm going to be coming to you along with the Ocean Decade Task Force, which we're about to stand up in the next few months to really try to get the islands, the SIDS, to understand the benefits of participating in this. And just some quick examples of programs that you might be engaged in. The Latin America now has a network of blue schools and ocean and pushing ocean literacy in schools, where the next generation of fisher folk and managers are going to be trained. We need to get that into the Caribbean schools. We have been doing, I heard in the opening ceremony about sargassum and harmful algal blooms, and we've had a couple of presentations on that. And ciguatera, marine biotoxins. We have been doing the science on these things, but I have to admit that we have not been great at transmitting that information and data to the public. Multi-hazard early warning systems, including those biotoxins, oil spills, marine spatial planning, and the new buzzword, which is ocean digital twinning. We have a workshop coming up to introduce digital twinning of the oceans to the region in October in association with the UNEP Cartagena Convention Conference of Parties. We want to establish a marine pollutants observatory, understanding cumulative impacts of multiple stressors. So our conclusions would be, we need more regional forums. We need representatives across the board, not just scientists. We need young people, we need women, we need community leaders, we need private sector, tourism and oil and gas and fisheries in the Decade Advisory Body. We need Decade collaborative centers that will help us to deliver the science. And we are in the process of establishing the Ocean Decade Coordination Office for the Tropical Americas and Caribbean region. We need students, volunteers, and partners to engage in delivery of this critical coordination infrastructure framework. Thank you very much.
All right, and thank you too. What a passionate presentation. Thank you so much for that, Lorna. Wonderfully said. And what really resonated with me is, starting from the schools, we really do need to build ocean literacy in our schools. And I just see that our CRFM team has indicated that the presentations will be available on the website for the conference this evening, and others will be updated as we go along. So much appreciated. Any questions for Dr. Inniss? Okay, yes, Tanya Norori.
Oh, thank you. Greetings to everybody. My name is Tanya Norori. I'm an independent fisheries and marine consultant, and I've been working with OSPESCA and some of you in the Caribbean. I applaud some of the decade presentation, which I think it's quite an outstanding achievement, and some of the topics that we've been discussing further in some other fora in Latin America, and particularly Central America. How do we go about getting in contact with you, Lorna, and trying to build this through? Because we've been discussing and we have made some steps forwards, because as you know, we have to trickle down in all the areas, but also to develop some of the priorities. As we know, science and the time is running out, but particularly in areas where we have identified that the precautionary principle is not helping to actually make some of those managerial decisions, but at the same time, we do need to move forward in areas of where research is still outstanding, meaning population studies for spiny rock lobster, perhaps. So how do you think to try to go about those groups? Firstly, obviously, how to get in contact to step forward into them groups, and yes, how do you see a path and try to join them together? Is there already like a priority list for the area, or are we going to start moving forward from the beginning into that? Thank you.
No, we already, Central America actually already has projects, quite a number. And through the interim coordination mechanism for oceans, of which CRFM, OSPESCA, SICA, CARICOM, and EO Caribe and Cartagena Convention, among others, are part. We are really hoping that all the interim coordination mechanism becomes a part, either partially or wholly, a part of the UN Decade of Ocean Science advisory body for the region. I think that will be an excellent way for us to come up with collaborative projects that advance science, but also allows us to see what others of our partners are doing on a consistent basis, because we're talking to each other on a consistent basis. With respect to the to contacts, I'll put my contacts in the chat, and please do get in touch. We expect that the Decade Task Force first meeting will be maybe the end of September or early October, because we're really trying, because the region is behind all the other regions, we're trying to get moving as quickly as possible. So we will be in touch with as many of you as we possibly can. We're trying to make sure that the young people are on there, that we have somebody from tourism, we have somebody from oil and gas, we will have people from fisheries, so that we try to make sure that all the communities, as many of the communities as possible, are covered.
Thank you.
All right, and thank both of you. Sir Hotney, you have a quick point?
Yeah, a quick point.
Go ahead.
I want to commend Lorna for that excellent presentation, and also the proposal regarding improving mechanism for improving science. At the same time, I think we need to look at the arrangements for using the information. And I think we need to have some mechanism, some system, some commitment, some obligation to be guided by science, best science that is available, which we do not have now. So, you know, you may have excellent science, and we do in some cases, but decision makers, you know, if they don't feel that the science provide the information they want and it's leading them in the direction they want to go, they just ignore it, and there is nothing. And that's a big part of the problem. So I just want to leave it at that. And, you know, I look forward to contributing to the process, and I think we all do. So, you know, this is interesting and an area that we need to look into. And by the way, they have a science organization that generates the scientific advice and information for a lot of their decision making. Well, they provide scientific advice to the EU as well as to several European countries. But it's an independent body. It's subscribed to by all the countries. They fund it, and they produce of course, it's reviewed by the National Scientific Decision-Making Mechanism. But it's a very influential body.
All right, thank you so much.